Hey everybody, this is Fred Rachani of TSC News. Apologize for lack of camera setup. Literally just got home to the news that John Jones has been flagged for a USADA violation. UFC President Dana White confirmed in a press conference with the media just a little while ago, which means that his main event title fight with Daniel Cormier, champion versus champion for the undisputed light heavyweight championship, is officially off UFC 200, which could have been, and perhaps should have been, the biggest UFC pay-per-view of all time. Now, it is Mark Hunt versus Brock Lesnar as the main event. And I don't know about you, but I don't think that fight's going 5 rounds, and I certainly don't think Brock Lesnar expected to go 5 rounds, and neither did Mark Hunt. Just so many emotions, so much. I don't know. There's a lot going through my mind right now because this kind of hits a little close to home. Because the very first UFC I was ever credentialed for was UFC 128, John Jones versus Mauricio Shogun Rua. And I covered that fight. I saw a kid. He was around my age, just kick ass, take the world by storm, win the title, youngest champion in UFC history. He was awesome at the press conference. Just such a likable guy, fun-loving guy. And I thought, my God, this dude's a star. This guy is a star. He's going to be a star for years to come. He's going to lead MMA to the promised land. You know, you got GSP, you got Anderson Silva, but you know what? This John Jones kid, man, he's something else. He really is something else. And man, the sky's the limit for him. And over the years, he went on to become perhaps the greatest fighter of all time. I firmly believe that he is the greatest fighter of all time. Some may disagree. Some may say GSP, Anderson Silva. That's fine. You know, Fedor. And hey, look, they all belong in the conversation. But my opinion, it's John Bones Jones at the ripe old age of 28. And over the years, of course, he's had a lot of misgivings, a lot of issues. And that included the DUI, where he was in the car with 2 women who were not his wife. That included testing positive for cocaine. And that included, more recently, last year, the hit and run where he injured a pregnant woman who thankfully was okay. But, yeah, still a bad deal. And oh, yeah, fleeing the scene. And in all those instances, I thought, man, this guy got off kind of easy. I mean, okay, he ended up getting stripped of his title. But in the eyes of fans and a lot of media, they saw him as the real champion. And even though Daniel Cormier had a big win over Anthony Rumble Johnson, even though Daniel Cormier had a big win, a great fight against Alexander Gustafsson, he still was looked at as, you know, not the real champion. Because the Michael Jordan of MMA, at least in terms of ability, John Jones was out. So here we are, just a couple days before UFC 200. We're all expecting this grudge match to finally be settled. John Jones is the favorite, but hey, stranger things have happened in MMA. Look at Michael Bisping, 3 weeks' notice, coming off a movie set to knock out Luke Rockhold to win the UFC world title. I mean, just an incredible story. If there was ever a year where John Jones would finally get dethroned, it might be 2016. There's been a lot of wacky things that have happened. Michael Bisping certainly at the forefront of that wackiness inside the cage. And here we are. This fight's now off. Now, I don't really care if John Jones is a good person or a bad person. I really don't. When I met him, nice guy. You know, I actually met him a year after he won the title. And I think it was a few months following his DUI when I worked at Spike TV's MMA Uncensored Live. And he came to Control Room, was just a real charming guy. I thought, all right, you know what? He screwed up. A lot of guys get DUIs. I don't condone it, but I figured he'd move on from it. And instead, things kept getting worse and worse. And it was tough because I saw his interview he did with Ariel Helwani a little over, what was it, maybe like 6 months ago or so. Whenever it was sometime last year, or maybe earlier this year, and I wanted to believe him. You know, I wanted to believe, you know, when he was walking through Albuquerque and talking about his family and how he screwed up, that he was a changed man. I wanted to, but I and many fans can no longer give him the benefit of the doubt. I really can't. And while I don't care if he's a good or bad person. I will say this. If he was only doing harm to himself, no big deal. I mean, big deal. It's still a sad story. But wouldn't be as big of a deal as him harming others. DUI, put others in danger. Hit and run, put others in danger. In this case, no, he did not get behind the wheel of a car intoxicated or drive recklessly. Thank God. But he financially screwed over a lot of people. Number one, Daniel Cormier. And look, if Daniel Cormier gets a new opponent, that's great. Maybe, just maybe, with the presence of Brock Lesnar, this pay-per-view will still do 1 million buys. But will it do record-setting numbers? Frankly, I don't think so. And even if Daniel Cormier fights, he's probably not going to earn the money he could have made. And if he doesn't fight, I would like to assume that the UFC would compensate him. Let's just say his show money is a couple $100,000, so $200,000, right? Some people may say, oh, well, he didn't have to fight. He didn't take damage. And, he got $200,000. Yeah, that's great and all, but he spent money on training camp. He spent countless hours promoting. He put a ton of stress on his body, and he's not a young guy. He's 37 going on 38, okay? This is by far the biggest fight of his career, and frankly, John Jones is too. But this is the time for Daniel Cormier to get that money. Get that money. So you say, oh, yeah, $200,000. That's good, right? Yeah, that's great. Until you remember that had he fought John Jones, if he was able to fight John Jones on Saturday, he probably would have made at least a couple $1 million. That is life-changing money for a guy like Daniel Cormier, who does not have a lot of time left in mixed martial arts. Whereas John Jones, as he stated in the press conference earlier today, he said, yeah, I'm not really worried about a loss, and he clearly figured he wasn't going to lose. But he said, I'm not worried about one loss because my legacy's intact, and I feel like I got at least another maybe 10 years or less fighting. And perhaps he does. But here's what he doesn't have in his future at the moment. Fighting. He might be fighting for his career in front of a commission, but he is not going to be fighting anytime soon. Let's just say this was a tainted supplement. And I believe Tim Means, if I'm not mistaken, Yoel Romero, those guys had legit tainted supplements. They got 6 months, okay? They got 6 months from USADA. They were able to prove that there was something in their respective batch of whatever supplements they were taking that was flagged, that wasn't listed or whatnot, and USADA granted them 6 months. 6 months essentially because, you know what? Okay, there was a mistake. However, you should know what you're putting in your body. And perhaps John Jones simply accidentally took a banned substance. Maybe unknowingly took a banned substance. But you know what? You mean to tell me that this guy who admittedly was a hard partier, that probably tried every drug under the sun, who had some weird testosterone levels too, back when he originally fought Daniel Cormier on top of the cocaine drug test failure? Man, I don't know. I don't know about that. I think it's PEDs. And Chael Sonnen speculated this on ESPN. He did say, hey, to be fair, you know what? It is speculation. But, you look at the weight gain John Jones had when he was powerlifting and everything. And he lost some of that weight. But when he came into that OSP fight, he did look bigger. He did look different. And look, he could have just been, working out and lifting heavy because he's a kind of a tall, slender guy. And, you put on a little muscle, obviously it's going to be noticeable. So I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much. But I will say this. I don't care if it was an accidental banned substance. I don't care if it was a drug that he knowingly took. All right? I really don't care. At the end of the day, he screwed up UFC's biggest pay-per-view of all time. And I don't necessarily feel too bad. I mean, I feel bad for Dana and Lorenzo and the Fertitta brothers, but let's face it. They're on the verge of selling this promotion if they haven't already for, $4 billion, $4.2 billion if a deal hasn't already been agreed to. They'll be fine. But I feel bad for a lot of the hard-working staff that's worked hard to promote this event. I feel terrible for Daniel Cormier. I feel terrible for the other fighters like, say, Miesha Tate or Frankie Edgar or Jose Aldo, who I'd like to assume get at least some cut of the pay-per-view. I'd like to assume. I don't know if that's the case, but it might be. Hell, for Brock Lesnar, that might be part of his payment. Pay-per-view points. Well, those guys are going to be earning less money because John Jones is not on the card, and that big blood feud matchup, the big blow-off, is no longer happening. So he's not only screwed over people physically before and put people in danger before, but he's also now screwed over people financially. And look, whatever you want to say about UFC 151, should he have fought Chael Sonnen? Should he have not fought Chael Sonnen? Whatever, all right? But man, oh man, oh man, oh man. For all the great things Jon Jones has done in his career, I mean, yeah, look, he's right. He's right. His legacy is intact. But you know what? You know what? Part of his legacy is all his screw-ups. And a lot of people like to make fun of Daniel Cormier, say he's the paper champion, he's not the real champion. And he said something that resonated with me after he won the title last year against Anthony Rumble Johnson. He said, you got to be a champion in the cage and out of the cage as well. And never have those words rung more true than in this case right here. You could say what you want. Oh, you didn't beat the real guy and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? He wanted to. And he trained his ass off. He worked his freaking ass off. And he was ready, win, lose, or draw, to give it his all, to leave it all inside the octagon. And Jon Jones robbed him of a significant payout and robbed him of the opportunity to prove himself. And on top of that, robbed the fans. He did. So I really don't have any sympathy for Jon Jones. He could get 6 months if he's lucky. Okay? If he's lucky. But if he doesn't get 6 months, i.e. if it turns out that he knowingly took a banned substance and it wasn't a tainted supplement or any other BS, okay, he's looking at 2 years. He's looking at 2 years out of the sport. Would he still have a career after that? Assuming he'd actually, I don't know, stay out of trouble? Perhaps. Perhaps. But my God, he is well on his way to not only becoming the greatest fighter of all, I mean, I think he's already the greatest fighter of all time, but he's well on his way to also becoming the greatest screw-up and waste of talent of all time. My God, feel terrible for DC. I feel terrible for Jon Jones' loved ones. I don't really feel bad for Jon Jones. I feel bad it's like a Bronx Tale. The worst thing in the world is wasted talent, and unfortunately, today, that's what Jon Jones is right now. He's done a lot of great things inside the octagon, but with his youth, with his talent, he could do so much more. And yeah, so much for that. But folks, I want to hear from you. What do you think about this Jon Jones controversy? What do you think about the potential of DC still fighting at UFC 200, which is very risky for him, but you look at the landscape. I mean, that was his money fight. If Jon Jones is gone for 2 years, he might as well defend his title, right? Because I don't think there's going to be any big money fights, and at 205, unless like Anderson Silva went up or something. And I don't see that happening. But let me know. Leave a comment below. Tweet us, Facebook us. Do what you got to do. If you enjoyed this update, please like, please share. Take care. And until next time, everybody, as always, enjoy the fights.